who's here? Thanks for stopping by. This is what's officially called the Vintage Wood Shop. My name's Sandy, and I prefer to think of this as my playpen. Now, I know I'm doing this backwards. This is supposed to be at the end of the video, but this is my first video, and this is my first experience with acrylic. So this was an experiment. This was a learning experience for me, and I learned a lot. I made some mistakes here. I'll point them out, but let's get into the meat of how I got to this point and the errors that I made that might prevent you from making them. Thanks for stopping by. We'll see you later. Here you can see I am using Total Boat resin. This is the slow hardener. I believe that the bulk of the videos that I watch on YouTube are using this particular acrylic. There's one other competitor that people brag on, Alumilite. I suspect that the popularity of this particular resin is that it looks as though they're ready to hand out discounts to various users. You saw there in the middle of the bucket that I did have a filler strip so that I didn't have to soak up so much resin, but I did. I used an extraordinary amount of resin. As you see in this scene, I've come a considerable ways since I cast it. I ground off the outside resin. It was a true learning experience. You have to go really, really slow with this stuff. You can't just stick a gouge in there and start hogging off material like you can with green or dry wood. Here I'm using that big old butter knife that I bought from Hurricane and converted to a negative rake scraper. And throughout this process, I keep switching back and forth, trying to find which tool will be the most effective one in turning these. I just reversed the direction of the lathe here. Makes it a lot more comfortable than holding the gouge at an awkward angle. I would point out that that was the third or fourth time I had stepped over to the grinder to resharpen the negative rake scrapers. On two occasions, I rotated the carbide on the Easy Wood carbide scraper, and on one occasion took the carbide tip off the tool and resharpened it. Using a good sharp tool on this stuff is absolutely imperative.
Checking for thickness and still struggling with which gouge to use, I'm back to the big butter knife. I'll pick up my Ellsworth, that's a 5/8 inch bowl gouge. I can't make it cut the way I want it to, so I'm back to the Easy Wood carbide tip scraper in just another second. All of the video has been displayed at double speed, and even at that speed, if you listen to the background noise, there's a high-pitched whine that I've never heard when I've turned anything. I varied the speed, I varied the angle of the gouge, and I couldn't do anything to make that whine go away. If anybody has any ideas about what causes that, let me know in the comments below. It must be noted at this point in time I was literally knee-deep in angel hair, and one of the points that I picked up from the educational point of view is that using the gouge is preferable to using either the negative rake or the carbide tip scrapers. With the bowl gouge, you can actually direct the angel hair away from you so that you're not ending up looking like an overly flocked Christmas tree by the time you're done working. This thing is finally approaching its final shape. I'm getting to the point where I'm satisfied with the thickness of the walls and the uniformity is there. And looking forward to the point where I can do a little sanding and finally see what the grain's going to look like. I hadn't really appreciated any of the grain to this point, but wait until you see it pop. And let the sanding begin. I sanded all the way through the grits, 80 up through 600. When I do the sanding, I attempt to keep the direction of the sanding disc perpendicular to the bowl. I use two different sanding disc backers. There's one that's stiff and there's one that's soft. I use the stiff one up through 220. From 220 on, I use the very soft one. I also will sand with the lathe running in reverse, and those two little drill motors I have are reversible as well and work extraordinarily well. I've had to turn the background down on this. There's just way too much background noise going in the shop. I've got the drill motors running, I've got the dust sucker running, and of course the shop radio blaring classical rock and roll, without which one can't possibly work effectively. And now the fun begins. Starting here with a nice tight close-up, lack of scratches. You saw a close-up earlier of the scratch patterns that existed after I finished sanding with the 80 grit. And now I'm going to use the axe paste. I've never used this stuff before. I saw it recommended time and time again in a number of videos of people that are working with acrylic, and I see now why they so highly recommend it. It was at this point in time that I really fell in love with this little bowl. The grain popped. You got to see the detail in the acrylic, and at this point in time, this bowl became more than an experiment. It became a project about which a person could be truly proud. After I finished buffing off the abrasive paste, I went ahead and buffed the bowl with some 4/0 steel wool, wiped it down with some denatured alcohol, and then applied 2 coats of the Axe polishing paste, which was just as good as all of the recommendations that I've seen on YouTube videos. This is the first of 3 coats of OB Shine Juice that I applied, and by the end of it, I'll do a close-up, and even on camera, you can see the chatoyance in this black walnut just jump right out at you. Setting up the coal jaws so that I can finish the bottom of this thing. I turned the tenon off. I usually do use a tenon as opposed to a mortise. And then of course went through the entire process, sanding through all the grits, and treated the bottom the same as I had the remainder of the bowl. That's the 3rd coat of shine juice going on this little bowl's bottom. And now it's time to dismount the coal jaws and hook up the buffing wheel. Put a little bit of carnauba on this just for giggles.
Okay, here it is. The chatoyance in this wood is just amazing, and of course, still or video images just do not do it justice. Now, part of the learning process here is when I was struggling there getting this acrylic to come off decently, one has to go very slowly because I created some fractures here in the process of knocking that acrylic off the outside too aggressively. You can see another couple of little fractures in here. All in all, it is a piece to be proud of.
The little black walnut bowl measures about 6.5 inches in diameter. It's 3.25 inches deep. And until next time, go out and strap on that tool belt. Find the beauty that Mother Nature put inside that piece of wood for you.